Welcome back, everyone, to Tarot Journeys with Guy. How's everybody out there? So we've seen all the world leaders meet in New York City, United Nations Summit. And, of course, all of the globalists and these, these types all come together. But all the world leaders do come together quite often, right? Now, and one of the things that they tried to initiate or put forward is this United Nations trust of the future. Okay, we know all about their machinations. We know all about their plans, right? So that's sort of like a side note, I guess, in a lot of ways. So we saw all the different world leaders come out and give little talks and speeches. Some of them were like the president of Argentina basically calling out the United Nations, and to their face, he's done this to all the globalists, basically saying that socialism, collectivism will be the ruin of us all, and that the United Nations being a defunct organization because it's not following through with its original mandate to promote peace in the world, is more they're promoting ideology and implementation of a centralized global government. Okay, so that's one thing. And then we had the Haiti president, I think he was the president, talking about how he wants respect and then taking a big gulp of water out of the jug sitting beside him and then spilled it all over the front of him. And then you had the prime minister of Israel talking about the war with Hamas and Hezbollah and what was going on. And then basically right after a huge airstrike, right after he finished his speech, a huge airstrike was initiated against Hezbollah infrastructure in Lebanon and supposedly wiped out the leadership of Hezbollah, right? So very interesting. Talk about a multi-pronged fifth generational war using all elements, and man, amazing, right? So all of the people that essentially the deep state had set up in the public as freedom fighters and all of these different organizations that we were seeing, and Hamas and Hezbollah are part of that goes back to the 80s and 70s with the PLO and, oh man, and basically the Cold War still being fought and how the Soviet Union was using the liberation movements and the Islamist movements as a proxy, and the United States and the Anglo compact with Israel and the Western nations set up the freedom fighters. And we've seen this all over. Well, since the end of World War I, since the end of World War II, everywhere that these world powers have had engagement, it has created future conflicts, right? Let's say, right? And this is where we get into this idea of co-opting world events and implementing agendas and things, and the problem, reaction, solution scenario that the deep state implements in every scenario that they're involved in. Their aim is for domination. It's for total control. It's for total takeover. Really shouldn't confuse ourselves about it. I mean, we've undergone a massive generational, societal, civilization size psyop. President Trump was talking, I mean, he met with Zelensky. That was the other thing. And it's funny, right? Like, they're all meeting with President Trump to kind of know where the tide is turning. And then the call for peace, President Trump calling for peace, where you have the Democrat, DNC, deep state, globalist driven side of things, the left usually now, call for war, and calling for war with Russia, Iran. But the thing is with the Ukraine-Russia thing, this is one of the pledges that President Trump is promising. First day, create peace. But it just is another example of what we're dealing with. And it's the contrast can't be more apparent. And him talking about the border invasion, the illegal migration policy that's been implemented, and the missing 300,000 plus children cycled into the system, trafficked, utilized, missing. It's been happening for a very long time, and worse than what is even being admitted to. Okay. So that's good. That needs to be openly talked about. That needs to be openly discussed, right? That's part of the exposure. That's what these guys are. This is how they have been maintaining control, manipulating people. This is how they're sort of blackmailed also into situations. It's a big part of their system. So we saw the Hezbollah thing in Lebanon, and so on the other side of it, with all of these different hearings, especially around the Secret Service and the attempted assassination on President Trump, then you see an element sort of accusing Iran, okay, and going after Iran as part in playing a role in attempting to assassinate him and trying to kill President Trump. Now, okay, so that's the other thing. And then part of that Department of Homeland Security talking about how there's foreign groups operating as assassination teams. Now, this is, in my mind, another hook to getting us closer and closer to an escalation with Iran and this idea of a global conflict. Okay, so I'm not sure. We're not really sure. I don't really believe anything that any of these agencies say right now. I don't believe anything. There's only a few people in Congress that are fully on side with the Patriots. Okay, and I mean, we're seeing, it's like we've been talking about it for a year, rats leaving the sinking ship, and we've been witnessing this happen, right? Yeah, amazing. Absolutely amazing. What else did we see here? So, yeah, and I mean, we saw this happen in 2016, just before President Trump got elected. We saw the almost similar circumstances where you start to see the actual governing system come to the surface. The shadow people, the deep state, and what is actually taking place in the world, right? And so we have to pay attention. We have to be very aware of what these guys are doing, right? So now, we're right in that pocket. We're right in the pocket towards the U.S. election. And so, in 2020, when basically the election was lost, and the deep state inserted the Biden, Kamala cutout, let's say, I knew that this was going to be 4 years of craziness and 4 years leading up to this election, right? It had everything to do with the next election. And, I really hope that it doesn't go in the same way, right? But who knows? I'm not necessarily going to sort of predict any kind of thing that's beyond like the next couple of days, or that's not my aim. My aim is actually to sort of be more on point and aware of what's being thrown at us, and to counter a lot of the garbage that is being projected onto us, right? It's also there to also help us connect spiritually, right? The cards are an amazing tool, and it's a way of sort of navigating these crazy waters, right? So yeah, I knew it. and we're going to just keep going with the idea that President Trump's going to win, and we're just going to take it one day at a time. And it's funny too, right? Like the P. Diddy stuff coming out right in line with this, and it's, you know, it is part of their blackmail ring, and like in a way, is it like them activating a part of it? And is it also the other side of it, the patriots that are there trying to dismantle it and trying to take it over and trying to expose it? It's a bit of both, and what we're seeing. And, you know, and I'm a firm believer that a lot of this stuff is kind of partly distraction. Partly it's there to distract us from their actual aims, their actual plans and actions, right? And I mean, we see this, like this thing at the UN. This is a prime example. The World Health Organization has been doing all sorts of stuff as well, right? On the back burner too, there's all of this information coming out about the vaccines, about COVID and where it comes from and what it actually represents and what it actually means, right? But people don't hear about that, the majority, right? Because of the mainstream media, because of the influencers that are taking over in the internet space, right? That are there to misdirect and lead people away from that information. I mean, there's a lot of people on the internet, right? But I mean, there's also a lot of us independents that are and that's what's combating it, right? And that's what's so great. That's why we have to keep encouraging each other as best as we can to stay in it, to stay on point, right? Because that's the only way. It really is the only way right now. So we're in that pocket of time leading up to that election. So it's kind of crucial that we, I guess, stay energized and on point, you know? So let's see, let's just do the kind of usual, do a little spread. What do we need to hear? Yeah, what's the message, what guidance? And then I think we'll do a little deep state versus the patriot read again afterwards. Deep state versus the patriots. Okay, so yeah, I always forget to describe the cards. So really briefly, past, present, future. So, right, past, and then the present with the middle, right, here, and it's the future, okay? And so this is the spiritual component, or what crowns us, what the spiritual direction, and this is the foundation, the earthly foundation, the material foundation, what we're sort of dealing with, I guess. In some ways, these are advice. And then I like to pull these cards as sort of like telling me a story, kind of tells me how we got to here, how to sort of read this, I guess. Okay, so interesting, the Fool comes up in the present. Now look at this guy, the Fool. Such a cool card in the sense of him taking, or her, can be both, right? Taking the leap, the definitive leap, the journey into the unknown. And a lot of us, that's what's taking place, right? And so one of the cool things too, actually what I did since the last time we've sat and I've done a reading, done a video like this, I guess, was checking up on all the people that are readers, and especially people that comment on my videos and that are out there doing readings in some way, shape, or form, even if they've done like a video a long time ago or whatever it is, right? And I mean, it was really cool to see some people sort of being sort of encouraged to sort of share their gifts more, right? And that's what I really encourage. Get out there, share your gifts. However, doesn't necessarily have to be like a video or anything like that. The videos are such a good way. It's accessible, right? But yeah, like it's time to get out there, to take that leap, to share our gifts, to not have any fear. See, that's the thing about the Fool is they're fearless. The Fool is called the Fool for a lot of different reasons. One of them is because it's the Fool. They look foolish sometimes for what they do. for most of their lives, or for whatever, people don't get it. And so they think that they're the fool, but they're not, right? It's not, yeah, it should be called the spiritual warrior or the spiritual traveler. But this goes back to the Renaissance. This goes back to the medieval times, where a lot of this information was brought to us through troubadours and through these traveling minstrels and these caravans. And they would dress up in very flamboyant outfits and the court gestures, and they would sing songs from afar and of knowledge lost and ladies fair and all of that kind of stuff, right? And this is part of it. This is how we've gotten this esoteric knowledge in a way, right? It's from the outsider. It's from those that dare to take the chance, to take the risk, right? Yeah, like this thing of freaking people out, with censorship and, they're going after this and they're going after that. That a lot of that is just fear tactics, right? Like the moon, there's a hidden intent behind a lot of that, and what people have been doing is not paying attention to it. A lot of people aren't fooled by it. I mean, that's kind of a little bit what we see all over, where people just aren't. There's certain people that have remained no matter what happens, right? And they're continuing to share this message, I guess, right? And that's the source of it. I mean, we need all of our independent people, like this sort of idea of independent reporting, right? Super important. I mean, there's a lot of things we wouldn't know about if we didn't have just people, boots on the ground, uncensored, right? I mean, that's what freaks out the deep state, is that it can't be censored. We're fighting a depopulation agenda. We're fighting a war against a war of all against all now. That's what they wanted. We as the people are fighting the deep state, fighting the globalist entrenched establishment. It can't be in any other way. They want, like this card here, it's like depopulation, control, and like, there's, right? Control. They're attempting to create the next human as well, right? And a big part of it is that there's a certain part of their infrastructure they don't want people to know about. They want people to volunteer for this, right? This is what we're fighting. This is what we're releasing, right? And working towards, and many of us have been working towards countering it, right? And countering it in various ways. And that's what we need to keep connecting with, is all the different ways that things are being countered right now. In regards to everything, every area of life, you name it, people are out there in the world countering this stuff, because these guys, like in Nazi Germany and their coordination program of trying to insert the Nazi party in every aspect of life, this is what they've been doing for the last 10 years, specifically, these globalists. And if not longer, right? But we can track it back. Even in the last 4 years, I mean, we can track it back quite reliably, right? But it's been going on for decades, been inserting themselves and changing the way. That's why everything is woke. That's why everything all of a sudden went a specific way, right? We know this. We all know this. We all know this. But we got to keep going back to sort of basics in some ways. Like, keep forgetting that. That's why I'm trying to describe the cards a little bit better when I'm doing this, because I do read the comments. Some people do get confused. Yeah, and I always get that. I always get people asking me like, what's the spreads that you use, right? So anyway, so that's from the past, right? And what we're dealing with is we're dealing with this situation where people don't want to trust other people and don't want to kind of come out of their shell, right? That's where this 9, we've got the 9 of Wands here, right? The 9 of Wands, where the guy is like really, he's defensive, right? He's in this defensive posture, and it's sort of like not knowing who to work with, because the 3 of Pentacles, Pentacles being the material card, right? The material world. These 3 people coming together have specific tasks to complete to fulfill one aim. And that's what we're kind of been looking for, right? But so that's part of it. Don't get discouraged. There are these people out there that we are in this situation all together, but yet a lot of us feel really kind of disconnected from some of this stuff. But that's been part of the psyop. That's been part of the aim, is to keep people completely at odds with each other. They're triggering a war. They're triggering wars for 2 real specific, well, there's more than 2 reasons, right? But like one of them is that their COVID climate lockdown psyop didn't work. That was one thing. The other is for money. The global system was sort of built to last for a period of time, and it was built off of wars. That's what I was saying about the karma. That's the karma of the age of prosperity that we've gone through. It's been based off of wars in a lot of ways, and creating like these false conflicts that are real, that we're seeing the results of it now. And so we have to kind of go through this process, right, in order for it to shift. And it has to be kind of called out. That's why this thing with the economy is like, it's like, what? It is so rigged. The whole thing is completely rigged. The economy is completely rigged, right? But yeah, they want the war, man. And the people, in some ways, are kind of preventing it, right? That's like, these people, like, they're not popular for the most part. And the people that are actually popular are talking about ending war. In a lot of ways, it's that simple. It's that simple. It's crazy, right? Okay, let's see what, okay, so let's do Team Trump, Patriot side, and the deep state. So we'll do Team Trump on this side and the deep state on this side, and we'll see. Pull out the game board, I call it. So, okay, Team Trump, Patriot side, and this is the deep state. This is the globalist element. This is the Democrats, I guess, in some ways. Hey, there's Kamala. Or is it Hillary? I think it's Kamala right now. But here, let's see. And then this is what's between them, okay? So, notice the swords. We've got all these swords here, right? Swords are thought, communication, but this is part of that information war. This is definitely about social media in some ways, but communicating a message. This is also like espionage. So Page of Swords, what I'm pointing at right here. Oh yeah, and there's like 4 of Swords here. 4 of Swords was in that other one, reversed as well. So information coming out around Murder Inc., the assassination wing of the intelligence communities of the deep state, because they've been doing it for a long time. They've been killing people for decades. So they're using that information. They're using it in some ways. Well, there's information coming out about how this all kind of does connect with the Democratic establishment, right? This is what and this is what they've been doing, is putting the Democrat deep state and the Kamala team on reaction, and they're super reactive. And so it's kind of like what I was saying in the last reading. No matter what they do and put out there, it's just it looks bad. It looks bad all around. And there's right, and the connections run deep to the last administration, which is the Obama-Biden administration. I mean, this Kamala Biden administration was only there as sort of like as a result of Trump getting into office, right? But it's a continuation of that Clinton-Obama establishment that was put in, right? The stay behind operation. Yeah, and like a lot of that information that has come out with Diddy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs, does connect to these guys, right? It's part of their initiation cycle that they go through. And I mean, there was like this period where being into men was taboo, right? And that was kind of like the thing, like, ooh, we've got so-and-so in a compromising situation with another man, right? Or a young man or something, right? But that's just like the surface, right? Because now that doesn't even matter, right? That's nothing. It is them with like kids and like doing absolutely awful stuff, like, and it all kind of does connect with these guys, right? And it's part of that battle. They're just, what the deep state right now, the Democrat, what they're really trying to do, there's two things. I mean, like I was saying, it's like they want to get their censorship laws passed and a war started, and they want to kind of do their best to clear up any kind of bad press about Joe Biden and the Biden crime family and Hunter Biden, right? Because that's like the other one. This is the pure and true avenue towards them being completely caught. Yeah, we got lots of information coming out about Kamala that totally goes against everything that she was saying and has been saying, right? And it's just a complete failure, right? And it's, in some ways, it's like a setup. I think they put her there knowing that this is what it was gonna produce, right? Because meanwhile, what they're doing is sort of guarding their abilities to like steal an election and to push people through that are illegitimate, right? Like, and so they still have that aim where they want to like definitely want to steal the election. They're trying to get everything, all of the blame, and I mean, we've been seeing this, all of the blame for everything that's going on right now onto Trump, onto the Patriot side, right? And I mean, we see this all over the world. We see this with every single leftist, globalist run government or group. They gaslight and project exactly like what they're doing onto their opponents. It's crazy, and we know this, right? But it's backfiring on them. That's the other big part of it, right? It is the war of hearts and minds that's stopping the actual like escalation of a global war. Yeah, like the deep state, what they want everybody to forget about is President Trump's attempted assassinations and all of the different connections that are sort of there that lead to the deep state, that lead to these guys. That's what they want. They want people to sort of forget about it, right? Like, they attempted to kill the leading candidate in a presidential election, a former president. They've got something planned afterwards, right? And this is kind of part of the battle, is like the Trump team know about this. This is what I was saying about piggybacking of operations. We've had defectors too. We've had people from all sorts of different areas that have come forward, right? Because they see, right? They see how decrepit and like what the actual aim of these guys are. The motive and the goals have been so obfuscated for so long that it's been hard to really sort of determine what these guys are up to, right? So yeah, that's what's going on for the next day or two, I guess. We're going to keep sort of keep it into small windows, right? Because there's so much going on. Who knows what's even happened in the time period that I've been recording this, right? Okay, let's see. We're being freed from a system that doesn't serve us, right? This is what we got to understand. It's the death of an old way of being. Like, and we've already seen so many things change, right? Those changes have been so present in society for quite a while, right? But, oh man, we are taking part, we're active participants. That's one thing that we got to remind ourselves, right? And that accessing the core, the truth of our being is so important right now. That's what the King of Cups really talks about. Accessing that core, that's why we're here. We're here to access that part of ourselves, to let it forward, to free it, right? It's so necessary. I mean, in a lot of ways, this guy, the King of Cups, he's telling a tale. He's wise counsel, but he's also got good advice, right? That's one thing, right? But he's there as a way of finding stability in the turbulence, right? The water is very turbulent. So it's finding stability within the truth of our own being, you know. It's funny too, there's like a boat kind of, you can kind of see the boat in the corner here. Yeah. And that kind of represents sort of like a movement, right? So in order for us to actually make a shift in a movement, we need to be well seated. We need to be well within the foundation of truth, right? Cups has a lot to do with our own spiritual, it's part of our spiritual body, right? But it's gaining sovereignty over our own spiritual self. And it only comes through source. It comes through divinity, let's say, okay? And that's what's being freed up. That is a necessary thing that's taking place right now, and we have to kind of remain on that track, right? This is another card of stability, and not get caught up in the death of an old situation, an old scenario, right? And like they use fear, right? Like part of that whole tactic is to like create a scenario that is fearful so that people will go towards that which they deem as safe or stable. But like, this is where we get the problem reaction solution, where you've got these people, you've got the deep state globalist death cult in the camp of creating the problem. They've got people on the other side of it that are opposing and are part of the reaction. And then you've got their own people in the camp that are there to pose as the solution. And we've been dealing with this for so long, and that's how they've got us trapped, right? And the thing in the Middle East is so apparent to me because of the last 30, 40 years, 50, 60, 70 years, 80 years, going back to the end of World War II. And knowing that history and knowing what has actually taken place in some ways, right? I don't know exactly, but this is what we've come to, right? And it's, I mean, wow. You can see the machinations, you can see the manipulation that's sort of being played, okay? And how, people's good intent and their good intent, like the good intention is being utilized, like all things are being utilized. And so it really does come down to, like, in any given situation, I don't support the government per se, I support the people. Of course I want to see a just rule of law. Of course I want to see an end of corruption, but ultimately I support the people. It doesn't matter, and very rarely will I trust a politician or anybody that's put into a position where, like this guy, the King of Cups. We have to trust ourselves when we have contact with that that part of the world, right? And I guess that's what the King of Cups really talks about, is restoring the trust of self, right? And being able to register within our own intuition and our intellect when we're seeking answers. Yeah, connecting with the true self and like liberating ourselves from the globalist machinations, you know, and being very choosy on what and where we put our resources and our energy is really key. And just sort of recognizing, like, just because like an old order is dying, a situation is shifting, doesn't necessarily, it doesn't need to be tumultuous, right? I mean, it is part of a track, it is part of a course that was set for humanity. It is part of the plan. It's part of the divine plan, right? Well, that's it for today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.